The controversial Irish cage fighter Conor McGregor has put his hat in the ring to be the next president of Ireland. Fresh from his visit to see Donald Trump at the White House, McGregor made the announcement on social media, urging Irish citizens to vote for him. But will they? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, the mixed martial arts fighter Conor McGregor has teased that he could be in the running to be Ireland's next head of state. The polarising Dubliner has frequently found himself on the wrong side of the law, but appears to have found favour with the US president. Could McGregor get enough support to be nominated for Ireland's presidency? And would he have the backing of the Irish public?
He's one of Ireland's most contentious figures.
Happy Paddy's Day, America!
Conor McGregor spent St. Patrick's Day with the US president. The mixed martial arts fighter was invited to the White House to meet with Donald Trump despite his history of violence and a civil court finding him liable for assault in a rape case.
We couldn't think of a better guest to have with us on St. Patrick's Day.
McGregor took the opportunity to criticise Irish migration policies.
Our government has long since abandoned the voices of the people of Ireland, and it's high time that America is made aware of what is going on in Ireland. What is going on in Ireland is a travesty. Our government is the government of zero action with zero accountability. You know, our money is being spent on overseas issues that has nothing to do with the Irish people.
Irish politicians were quick to distance themselves from McGregor's visit.
He's here in a personal capacity. He doesn't speak for Ireland, he doesn't speak for the people of Ireland, he has no mandate to do such.
Now McGregor has announced his intentions to step into a new ring and run for President of Ireland. Vote McGregor, he wrote on Instagram. The future of our country depends on it. To be nominated as a candidate, he needs support from politicians or at least 4 councillors. While he may have the backing of the US president, the outspoken fighter is a polarising figure in Ireland. Could he get enough votes to become a candidate for the Irish presidency?
Well, let's meet our guests on this one. Joining us from Dublin in Ireland, we have Frances Fitzgerald. She's the former Deputy Prime Minister or Taoiseach of Ireland and current advisor to the G7 on equality. Also in Ireland, in Cork, we have Joe O'Shea. He's an Irish broadcaster and a journalist. And Catherine Noone joins us from the Irish capital as well, Dublin. She's a lawyer and a former Fine Gael politician. You're all very welcome to Roundtable. Frances, I'll come to you first. President Conor McGregor, how does that sound to you?
Well, it doesn't sound very good to me, I have to say. But of course, it's a talking point here, given that he has expressed an interest, apparently, in the position. But in order to be President of Ireland, the nomination is the first thing you have to get through. And for that, you would need 20 members of our Dáil Senate to nominate you, or 4 local authorities out of 31. So you need, to get through that process. And there's a lot of doubt as to whether Conor McGregor would indeed get through that. What I would say is that I think his name being suggested certainly arouses very strong feelings here, given his record. I would say amongst women and men, particularly women, given the court case last year where he was found guilty of rape by a civil court. He is appealing that, so we won't say very much about it at all. But yes, it's an unusual name, I think, to be in the mix for President of Ireland. You know, our past 3 presidents, President Michael D. Higgins, currently President, Mary McAleese, and President Mary Robinson, all very highly regarded.
Joe, to you, I see the only person who has endorsed Conor McGregor so far is an English right-wing commentator called Katie Hopkins. I mean, that's surely a kiss of death, isn't it?
It is. Well, it would be for anybody's political ambitions in Ireland. But the fact that we're even talking about it kind of shows the sort of how unserious the discussion about what's going on in terms of Irish politics and with the presidency. There was a survey done by a news organisation here in Ireland. They asked 134 TDs and senators, so members of our parliament, 134, would any of them nominate Conor McGregor to run as for president? And not one of them said they would. In fact, most of them replied with such comments as "not a hope in hell," or "I couldn't think of a worse person to be president of Ireland," or "it's never going to happen." It's hard, maybe for people outside of Ireland don't realise that it's not a post that you can just get enough people to back you, enough of the public, and build a groundswell and all that kind of stuff. There's a very set way to be nominated to be president of Ireland, and if you don't meet those criteria, you just don't get into the race at all.
Catherine, to you, I mean, can you see him getting anywhere near the numbers required to even get on the ballot sheet?
Well, the four of us all have a much, much better chance of being nominated to be a candidate for presidency. That's without question. So, just because he's high profile and he decided that he'd like to be president, I think Joe hit the nail on the head there. I mean, he said unserious. I would say uninformed. There is a microcosm of a voter group in the Oireachtas and the councils who absolutely, I think it would be very close to impossible for Conor McGregor to come through that process. And he would describe that as stitch up, or, that's undemocratic. I think it's quite democratic. I don't think anyone who is of questionable character, like I consider him to be, should come through a process to be able to be a candidate for an office of such importance. So I'm grateful that we have these processes in place in Ireland. And it's an attractive conversation. It's colourful. I'm enjoying it. But it's not in the realm of reality.
Francis, one issue that Conor McGregor says if he were to become president that he would sort out immediately is immigration into Ireland. Now, first of all, the President of Ireland, it's a figurehead role. He has no power to change government policy whatsoever, he or she, whoever becomes president. But
Yes.
do you think he has sparked a conversation about immigration? He's certainly playing to a certain base level of support amongst his crowd.
Well, we know that this is what populists do, and he's a populist and he wants to stroke a political agenda with his mates internationally. And part of what the populists do is they make very, grandiose, unhelpful statements about immigration. But you're right, the role of the president in Ireland is largely, it is ceremonial role. It appoints the government, Supreme Commander of the Defence Forces, appoints the judiciary, has to sign legislation. If he's unhappy with a piece of legislation, he or she sends it to the Supreme Court. These are the roles, as well as representing Ireland at home and abroad, in a dignified, representative manner. So in terms of dictating policy about immigration, absolutely not. But can he stroke a conversation about it? Actually, there's already a very intense conversation going on, as you know, and around Europe on immigration. I mean, it is a topic that is worthy of discussion, that needs discussion. New procedures are coming in at a European level. And that's the direction of travel, I imagine, that the Irish government, I know the Irish government, are going in. How do we implement the kind of European approach to having stronger borders, to having quicker processes, to making sure if people are not eligible, they return back to their countries of origin more quickly. But certainly, I mean, the government, are going in that direction. But the president really, I mean, it doesn't, generally speaking, although some presidents have on occasions, go outside the policy. But, conceptually, presidents talk about the big issues of the day in the world.
Joe, I see a lot of commentary online about McGregor running for president, and a lot of the comments seem to be, I don't like Conor McGregor, but he's saying what I think about immigration. Are you picking up on that when you're talking to people?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hot debate topic in Ireland at the moment, partly because of our history. We didn't really have large-scale immigration into the country for up until very recently. In fact, the Irish were the ones who emigrated all over the world. And one of the reasons why McGregor is being sort of taken seriously in America is because Ireland, there's such a large Irish American population. Something like 40 million people claim direct descent. So you have somebody like McGregor has been embraced by the Trump White House. And what we saw recently was McGregor actually brought over to the White House only a week, less than a week after our own Taoiseach, the leader of our country, went over for a traditional Patrick's Day visit to the White House, which is done every year, to the president. Our Taoiseach did his best to flatter Donald Trump, as you have to do these days, as visiting world leaders have to do. And then they go and invite Conor McGregor, who, recently was involved in a very, very terrible court case here in Ireland. The White House invites him in, puts him on, in the press room, the hallowed, lectern in the White House press room. They pose for pictures with Trump. One of the reasons why I think Irish people are now seeing Conor McGregor as somebody who they really do not want representing us on the world stage, and are actually really embarrassed about him. I mean, people are calling him one of the most despised or disliked Irishmen in the world right now, especially by Irish people. One of the reasons is because he's being embraced by these forces that they see as, right-wing, hard right, and who are actually involved in stoking up this anti-immigrant inflammatory language, which has really plagued Ireland for the past 3 or 4 years.
Catherine, to you, on that point about stoking up feelings, it's interesting, isn't it, that Katie Hopkins is touring England and Ireland at the moment. I don't know whether it's stand-up comedy or what she's doing, but she is vehemently anti-immigrant and she's embracing Conor McGregor. So Irish people, I think, will find it strange that you've got a figure from the hard right in England suddenly chipping in on Irish politics.
Well, strange, or who's going to back him in Ireland, so maybe he's just had to look to the UK. One thing that has really united Irish people, I think, in the last few weeks, above all other topics, is this. It's their universal dislike, for want of a better word, perhaps, of the idea of Conor McGregor representing us as a country internationally, in the White House, in the biggest superpower. It's sickening for most Irish people. And Katie Hopkins, she's cut from the same cloth, and they make a good pairing. But I don't think it's helping his cause. It's an absurdity, really.
Francis Fitzgerald, I keep seeing your name in all the newspapers. You're constantly in the running. The bookies have you amongst the favourites. Would you like to declare your candidacy here and now on Roundtable?
Oh, there's a lot of favourites for this job. There's an awful lot of people in this country actually interested in the presidency, which is we've had more and more people running. There was a time when only the two main parties would contest, but now you're seeing more independents, more people emerging from the NGO sector, and it's all human life is there, really. Of course, my name has been mentioned. I've had a long political career. I haven't ruled myself out, but there's a lot of favourites as well, a lot of other favourites too, and we'll see how it develops over the next period.
So, Joe, do you think this is just all about the brand for McGregor, free publicity? He's obviously in a difficult place after the court case last year, which we won't go into here, but his name has absolutely been tarnished in Ireland because of losing that civil court case. Do you think this is all about brand publicity and free advertising?
He's a man who wants to be in the public eye. He craves it. His MMA career, his fighting career is virtually over. He's probably not going to ever go back in the ring, or if he does, he may not do very well. He strikes me as a person who's he's so used to being in the limelight. He loves the notoriety. That's, he called notorious, that's what he wants to be. He's latched onto this Irish presidency thing, and he's been pushed and goaded into it and backed by the MAGA types in America and by other people as well who want to use him as a sort of populist spearhead into Ireland. He's seen this as a way to stay in the limelight. I think that's what it's really all about. It won't work for him. In fact, it's actually just making his brand worse here. He has these businesses in Ireland which don't seem to be doing well because the public seem to be turning against him. I don't know how far he can push this, but I think that once this is over, I think he's going to be a bit of a busted flush in Ireland.
Catherine, would you agree with that? McGregor's a busted flush.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I literally, it's not one word of what Joe said there that I would disagree with. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a political role we're talking about. None of the rest of us decide at 40 or 50 or whatever age Conor McGregor is that we're going to start doing MMA boxing, or we shouldn't be ashamed like that it is a political role. There is huge negativity about politics in general, but at the end of the day, it's a political job. And it should be, we should not be afraid to say that. And Conor McGregor does not have any qualifications for the job, quite apart from his character. So, yeah, good luck to him.
Francis, when we think of our current president, Michael D. Higgins, who you know very well, you think of compassion, dignity, intelligence, humanity, how well he speaks on Gaza and the Palestinian people. I mean, these are the kind of qualities that Irish people really respect and admire in a leader.
Yes, and I think people have liked those qualities in our, as I said, the last three presidents, and indeed before that. They like an intelligent approach to the job. They like it very much laced with human rights and with Ireland's kind of background on development aid and our own history of migration and a respect for our history. I mean, these are all I think, the traits and the characteristics that people like to see in a president. I mean, people want to elect somebody we can be proud of, who will represent us well, as I said already, internationally, not somebody who's trying to usurp the political system, actually. And there is sometimes a tension between the president and the government, of course. But, generally speaking, you can absolutely say we've been very well served, as I said, by our presidents. And I think, Conor, again, Catherine said, the experience is not there in terms of understanding even the constitutional issues, the constitutional role that the presidency is. You can see that by some of the statements he's made already about what he would do if he was there. That's not the role. It's a particular role with particular constitutional parameters that is very important to understand. And he certainly doesn't understand them, or doesn't even try to, I would say. But, as I say, he uses it as it's a platform right now.
Joe, if he doesn't get a nomination, as seems entirely likely, do you think he'll go down the conspiracy theory route and engage in social media? How will he react?
That's unfortunately his route. And, there's actually, there's a tragedy here in this story with Conor McGregor, because he's a working class guy who came from very little, from a part of Dublin, the inner city, that has been ignored in the past. He had the opportunity because he made himself a global success. Let's not forget that. He fought his way literally to the top. He could have been a great spokesperson for where he comes from. He could have been somebody who made a difference, who actually contributed to Irish life. And unfortunately, he's become trapped in this, hard right, populist, anti-immigrant, attention-seeking, pointless politics that only contributes to, that only makes things worse in terms of what we're trying to deal with at the moment. So I think that's the great tragedy with Conor McGregor. He could have been so much of a hero, not just in the ring, but to his community, and he blew that chance.
Catherine, just come in on that. I mean, we're screaming out for positive male role models, not just in Ireland, in every country. And McGregor had the chance to do something great with his life after his career. And he has chosen, many people would say he's chosen not to.
I mean, it's a great point. What a missed opportunity. Like, he should be an inspiration for young boys. Like, I've no particular respect for the sport. I think it's a very difficult sport to watch, and the fact that there are so few limitations in it. And maybe that's a good analogy, that he feels he's limitless because of his experience in boxing or something. And really, if he had harnessed that experience and that spirit for good, but clearly, at the end of the day, you can't get away from a person's character and nature. And, it goes back to the fable of the scorpion and the frog. His character is being outed here in everything that he's doing. And, that was going to come out at some point, and he's doing it very publicly. And it is sad. It is a missed opportunity, but he didn't have it in him to do good in the way that other people might, given the type of opportunity he has with his experience and his profile.
Francis, the same point to you, really. I mean, do you think it's a tragedy the way McGregor has gone since leaving the ring, and all of this kind of politicking and the hard right and speaking out against people coming to our country as Irish people when we've gone all over the world unhindered?
Well, of course, but I mean, he is what he is, and he's showing us right now. He has no analysis of the presidency. He just, almost unthinkingly, talks about it in a way that isn't grounded in any reality. And I think there is a big point here about the importance of male champions, for equality, actually. Male champions working with women and men working together to improve our world. And we have very big issues in relation to young men. And we have to take those very, very seriously. And I think we need more adult males, we need more men in leadership positions taking up these issues, but also it's so important. And we've had some fantastic, both male and female role models in sport here. And they are doing amazing work. And we're seeing how women in sport are increasingly recognized, getting more coverage, influencing how young women present themselves, how they enjoy their lives, fantastic role models. And Joe is right. I hadn't kind of thought about it hugely, but the idea that he could have done, he could have been a different sort of role model, but he is what he is, and he's showing us that.
Joe, how do you see it panning out the next few months then, the nomination process? The singer Frances Black, who's very, very famous in Ireland, I hear her name mentioned in the conversation as well.
I think Irish people are naturally centrists. What we are looking for in a president, what most people want in an Irish president, is somebody with a bit of gravitas, a bit of experience, not necessarily who has strode the world stage or anything like that, but somebody who's thoughtful, has life experience, has ideas, and will represent us well, because it is a ceremonial position, but it also, you're representing the people of Ireland. Frances Black, I think, would be a candidate that would appeal to a lot of people, because she's a well-known singer. She has that, and Irish people love music and singing and song, of course, but also she seems to have the kind of personality that would appeal to Irish people in terms of the presidency. Somebody who's measured, somebody who's kind, somebody who's warm and intelligent. And those they're the kind of qualities that Irish people really appreciate and will look for in somebody who becomes the first citizen of Ireland.
Catherine, who do you think will assume residency at the Áras an Uachtaráin, the House of the President in Ireland, for the next 7 years?
Well, I have a bias.
You're going for Francis Fitzgerald by any chance?
I'm in a political party. There'll be a process in our party, to choose a candidate, and that's certainly the candidate that I'd be backing. That's just, that doesn't make me, unusual. That I'm just being blatantly obvious about that. But there are a lot of people being mentioned now, and it's possible that somebody isn't even being mentioned who'd be likely to be the president. So talk is cheap. Let's just see what happens. When candidates come to be on the ballot paper, or come, closer to the time where it's getting serious, that's when we'll know who the runners and riders are. At the moment, it's just speculation and talk.
Francis, just final point to you. You trust the Irish people to make the right decision when the day comes?
Oh, totally. But I would make the point that it's a very unpredictable campaign. We've seen reputations being absolutely destroyed of really good people during the course of presidential campaigns before. It's very focused on the personality, very focused in that way, and makes it quite a tough and at times rough campaign. Probably compared to any of the other campaigns you'd run for in Ireland, that is one of the toughest and somewhat unpredictable. But again, when you look at the end results, it is kind of interesting what the Irish people have gone for. So I have great faith in the democratic process. And we know democracy is under attack in so many parts of the world, but it's a very, very democratic exercise here when it comes to the campaign for president and the election process. So let's see, where it goes.
Francis, You've spent your life in politics. One last big presidential campaign for you, maybe?
Oh, it's far too early to be making statements like that. I think for anyone, it's at a really early stage of the process, and you know, as Catherine said, each party has its own way of approaching this. Fine Gael will have a convention. There's quite a number of people in Fine Gael's, all very good candidates who are interested. And we've never in Fine Gael won the presidential, so it would be great to see that. Also, there's, you know, probably quite a lot of independents who will go forward. You don't know. I mean, the other thing you have to think about is context. This is a very difficult context at present in terms of the geopolitical situation, in terms of, the new government that we have and the formation and what that is, where that has been, and the current challenges in it. And in another few months, we are having all these trade difficulties coming up. So all of these, I think, will influence, you know, who the public will decide is best fitted to represent them at this moment in time. Given that context, it's going to be a difficult one for Ireland, I think, geopolitically and business-wide particularly.
Francis, that election takes place in November. If you are on the ballot, we will have you back in a heartbeat. And we wish you well. Joe and Catherine as well. Thank you all so much for this roundtable. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Just search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda Brady, and all of the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.